Hello everybody, it's Carol at Oak House Journals. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Lovely to have you with me. I'm going to do Margarete Miller's Collage Weekly Planner Project 2023, and I'm going to be working on assignment 23. So I've got my prompts here for that, and I've also got my white lightweight cardstock, which as always I've just drawn a pencil border all the way around, and I'm going to be working on here inside that border. For my prompts, the first one is something rough. Well, for that prompt I've chosen a bag that I've coffee stained, and this has a lovely texture to it, but I'm going to increase the texture on here by doing some machine stitching on it, and I've lifted out this Gutterman's thread in green, so I'm going to be using that. The second prompt is something that represents spring. Well, for me here in the UK, I love the yellows of the early spring blooms, such as iris and daffodils and primulas. And I've lifted out this gorgeous image here of 3 types of irises, and it's even got the word spring written at the top, so I'm going to see if I can incorporate that word somewhere on my assignment today, even though that wasn't one of the prompts really. I'm going to be using this image, but I probably won't use the whole of the image. I'm thinking that I will use these two here and get rid of this one on the right hand side. The next prompt is a staple, so I've got my Tim Holtz tiny attacher here. The next prompt is something upside down. Well, I've lifted out a couple of faux stamps here, and I'm leaning towards this fern one. And well, they're both ferns, but I'm leaning towards this one in particular. Sorry, wasn't thinking what I was saying there, obviously. And I've also lifted out this lovely little image here of some birds. Now this is a genuine stamp, so I might use both of these, or I might just use one, I don't know, but either of these or both together will hit the prompt for something upside down. So pop that to one side. The next prompt is a button, real, drawn or stamped. Well, I've got these vintage fabric buttons here, and I have had a little play with these beforehand, and I played using the Tim Holtz Ranger Distress Stain, and this one was in Scattered Straw, or this one is Scattered Straw I should say, and I just daubed it on 4 of the buttons and it gave me this lovely effect. But I've used 3 or 4 coats of the Distress Stain, drying between each of the coats, and whilst it gives me a lovely colour, it's very, very soft. It might not look that on camera, but it is fairly soft, and I think that those might be too pale for what I have in mind. I then tried painting the buttons with this Deco Art Media Fluid Acrylic, and this one was in Hansa Yellow, and that gave me a much brighter coverage, which I think is going to be better on my piece today. So I think I will probably be using these, but I also have these that I can fall back on, and when I put the two together, these are looking greeny yellow, whereas these are looking a nice bright yellow. So I've got both I can use. And finally, something musical. Well, I've got this lovely book here of Vivaldi's 4 Seasons. So I've got his Spring Concerto, and I just took a page from my book, I photocopied it onto some coffee stained paper. So I've got a scrap here that I can use on my piece today. And I've also lifted out a couple of labels. This is one of the Tim Holtz stamps that I've just stamped out onto some green stick paper, and this is just a label, paper label that's got a green edging, and I'll be using that as well. To make a start, I'm going to trim these 2 pieces. So I'm going to bring in my guillotine, and I'm just going to initially just trim away the white on this image. I'm going to put this piece to one side so I can use it later. I'm not going to trim this just yet. I want to get an idea of placement on my piece. Here's my bag trimmed to size, and oh, it looks absolutely gorgeous on here. I'm definitely going to use this idea on tags and things like that, journal pages. It just looks gorgeous, and I've got all these lovely pieces left over that were scraps from the bag, and these would almost be fabulous to use as faux vintage sellotape. So I need to trim my image so that I can see more of my background, and I'm going to trim away this one. So I've got my image there. I'm going to take away this background, and I'm going to machine stitch it with my thread to give my machine a fighting chance when it's sewing this. I'm going to glue it to some lightweight tracing paper and then run it through my sewing machine. This is how my background looks now that I've stitched through it. I really love this effect, and that's what it looks like on the reverse with the lightweight tracing paper. So this is more robust now than it was, and it went through my sewing machine like a dream. I also stitched round the image. So let's position these on the page and see what I can do with this. I want to line up that line on the image with this line of stitching like that, and try and get an even distance down this side. I've got my field label sticker, and I've got this botanical atlas one. Now this was just an old scrap of a ticket, and as you can see it's already got a bend in it, so I think I'll make use of that and trim it away. I can always use this on another project, so I'm just going to pop that to one side. And I don't want to use this in the conventional orientation, so I'm thinking that I'll make use of this writing up here and the date. Maybe pop that inside there. Oh yes, I'm liking that. Yes, so I want to cover up some of this writing at the bottom here, and possibly some of the roots. So let's have a look at this. Maybe pop that on there like that. Whoops, that's moved. So maybe something like that. I was thinking I could put my buttons on this label here. That's where my head was going with using this. Thinking I could position this on here so that I get some detail there and I get all this writing there. And then put these buttons on here. Now these are the ones that I did with the distressed stain, the scattered straw, and I think they're too pale on here and really get lost. So I'm going to use the darker ones to get a real pop of colour on here. I'm going to trim away some of this black on here. I'm not sure about this one, although the greens do go beautifully with that. But I do want to use this one, so I need to get something upside down. So I was thinking maybe I could do something like that. If I hide the bird, then it's not so obvious it's upside down. I quite like that 30 there for the 30 cents. And if I move it across a little bit, I can get that date in, which is quite nice. Then it hides some of that brown that I wanted to get rid of. Maybe pull it out a little bit more. Yes, I want to keep that edge separate from the edge of the stamp if I can, and use some of this in here to hide that wording. What I'm going to do is I'm going to staple this where I've got it on this green label. So let me get my tiny attacher. I like this little stamp positioned where I've got it, so I'm going to put some glue behind it under this label as well. And these I'm going to trim the edge and have these on here. Just wondering whether to put a French knot of green thread in the middle of those, but I think I might leave them. Now, where to use this? I've still got room to put the fern label under here if I want to, or fern sticker. I've just noticed that if I have it angled this way, then it's the right way up. If I have it that way, that is upside down, because there is the word, if I turn it round the right way, there is the word forever in that bottom left hand corner. So if I'm going to use it and have it upside down, I need it that way. So I was just wondering whether I could pop it behind here like that on its own, so that I've got more staggering going on around this area, and both my stamps are upside down. These I'm going to have with a bit of white space all the way around. I'm going to rip this off so that I can get more of an idea about this. Not sure if I want to use it as yet. So it would look something like that. Does soften down that corner. Before I make a decision on that, I'm going to play with my paper and see what I can do with this. And I'm thinking I might do something like that. I'd like to have a line of music underneath my label, and I'd like also to keep some of that if I can. So I'm going to cut away underneath this here, and again along this edge here. I've just positioned a piece of the music paper underneath my collage, so I'm liking how that's looking. I've lined up my label with this line here and end it about here, so I'm going to chop it with my guillotine. This was a label, so I'm going to peel off the backing. And I was thinking about having this fern up in that corner like that, and I think that looks quite nice, but I need to have quite a bit of that peeping out for it to be noticeable that it is upside down. So I've got this piece that I've just cut off there. That would go in here, and as you saw, I didn't peel off all the backing from this green label, just so that I have something to play with up here that isn't stuck down. So I'm just going to wriggle this piece in and see. Look at that. Yeah, I'm liking that. So I'm going to use this piece up here. It feels like it needed something up in that corner, and because it's the music paper, it's balancing it out better. Sorry, I've got it at an angle here so I can see it better, but if I hold it like that, perhaps you can see. So I'm happy with that, so I'm going to go ahead and glue this down now. Oh, I've got my word spring I wanted to get in, so I could use that. I'm just going to trim this up. I'm just going to pop that little word spring up there. I could put it down here, I think, and fill up that gap down there and have it slightly staggered off the music sheet, but actually I don't want to. I have a hankering to put it up here. I'm not sure why, because all the action is going on down here, but I think it would be nice up there, and that's where I'm going to go. And it's a spring on both sides, so I don't have to panic. So I'm just going to pop it up there in that corner like that. Whoops, just moved it. This is my finished collage for this week, week 23, and I have to say I'm pleased with it. I knew that all the action would be going on down here at the bottom, but in retrospect, if I wanted a more balanced collage, I should have moved this higher up my image. But the dilemma I had was that I love this image and I didn't really want to be obscuring much of it. So let's quickly go through the prompts. Something rough, well, I've got my stitching here on the bag that I coffee stained. Something that represents spring, well, I've got my Beautiful images of irises there and the colour yellow, and my little label there that says spring. A staple, I've got one here, just one, on this botanical label. Something upside down, I've got a New Zealand stamp here, and that one is upside down. A button, well, I went for these vintage French fabric buttons and I coloured them with some yellow acrylic paint. Bonus, something musical. Well, I used Vivaldi's Four Seasons and I went for the Spring Concerto, photocopied a portion of that onto coffee stained paper, and I've got a little bit here and another little bit up there. As always, I'll put a few photographs at the end so you can have a closer look at the collage if you're interested. I really do hope you enjoyed seeing this one come together and that you'll join me next week for assignment number 24. Until then, have a brilliant week. Hope you get some crafting in and take care of yourselves. Bye bye now.